Hey, this is Miss Minton, and I just wanted to talk to you briefly about summarizing a story. And we are looking at a literary text, so that's fiction. Um, the objectives to summarize a story are identifying the main characters, setting, and events of a story. Um, you have to be able to distinguish between what's important and what's not important in the story, unimportant details and events, and then use those key elements of a story to create the summary. Okay. This is a very important skill to learn. Sometimes you actually have to reread the story. Okay. Some stories we hear and we get them just right away. Some stories we don't. So, for instance, one of the things that you'll want to make sure you remember to do, well, I know when I was in journalism school, we had to know who, what, where, when, why, and how. Okay, those were the basic questions. If we didn't have all of those answers, then we didn't have a story. All right, and writing a summary is similar to that. So who, what, when, where, why, and how. You have to be able to do those. So if I go to, let's just let me get a new document out. All right, so who, what, where, when, why, and how. You have to be able to answer those questions before you can write a summary, all right? Another way to look at it is you've got somebody wanted something, right? But something happened, so they did something, then the end happened. All right. So, for instance, if we took let's just take the story of Cinderella. Okay. Now, if we go who, what, when, where, why, and how, we know that it's a fairy tale. All right. It's a common fairy tale. Should translate over nationalities. Everybody, I think, all nationalities have some sort of Cinderella story. Cinderella story just being the poor young waif girl who ends up marrying the prince and was happily ever after. Okay, so that would be your basic fairy tale for Cinderella. So in this particular case, that we have Cinderella, right? We have what? What does she want? Well, she wants to marry a prince. Okay, where? It's a kingdom far, far away. When? A time long ago. Because this is a fairy tale, we can't really say. Why? It's a dream, right? It's a dream. It's her fantasy. That's what she wants. And then how is she going to do it? Well, that's up for grabs. We don't know yet. All right. So in this particular story, once we read the story, we would know how she did it. So let's fill in this. Somebody wanted, but so then. And okay, so this is our SWBST. All right. Somebody, that's our Cinderella, wanted to marry a prince, but her evil stepmother wanted her own daughters to marry a prince. So the evil stepmother, and I'm thinking of the cartoon version of this whole thing, not the actual Grimm's fairy tale, because if you read that one, then it's really scary. So the stepmother locks Cinderella up in a tower. Then Cinderella Cinderella escapes, goes to the ball, meets Prince, falls in love, and they marry. Okay, that's a summary. Cinderella wanted to meet a prince, but her evil stepmother wanted her daughters to marry the prince. So the stepmother locks Cinderella up in a tower. However, then Cinderella escapes, goes to the ball, meets the prince, falls in love, and then they marry. Obviously, very simplistic, not not necessarily very complicated. Is it important to know that that Cinderella had a bunch of wild animals helping her? No. Is it important to know that now this godmother? You can argue that the fairy godmother has a part to play in all of this stuff. You could add that, but I think that in this case, if we want a short, concise summary, this is what you want. You just take the fairy godmother out. You can include her later. You can include it. You could probably include it, but you have to decide what's important and what's not important. You have to be able to tell me very quickly, in your own words, what's happened. Cinderella wanted to marry a prince, but her evil stepmother wanted her own daughters to marry the prince. So stepmother locks Cinderella up in her tower. And then Cinderella escapes, goes to the ball, meets the prince, they fall in love, and they get married. Period. Okay. We had a story that we read called The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. I'm going to try and do it the same way. Okay, somebody. And in this case, we have a somebody who's kind of like the townspeople, right? We have townspeople, and I'm going to put Mrs. Hutchison, because remember, she was the woman that was part of the final result here. Wanted, what did they want? They wanted a good harvest in the fall, but they have, but the town, they have to sacrifice someone in the town, but they have to sacrifice somebody. They believe they have to sacrifice, but they believe they have to sacrifice someone in the town. So they hold a lottery to choose the unlucky or lucky winner, the one that's going to be sacrificed. Then Mrs. Hutchinson is stoned to death. Okay. Again, the townspeople, let's just go with, let's take Mrs. Hutchinson out, okay, because we realize now as we're writing this that we don't really need her in that part of it. So I'm going to strike through that. The townspeople want to have a good harvest, but they believe they have to sacrifice someone in town. So they hold the lottery to choose the lucky winner, and then Mrs. Hutchinson is stoned to death. I could talk about her son, I could talk about her husband, I could talk about all the other people involved, but if we're going to boil this down to this is the summary, that's what you have to do. So somebody wanted, but so then. Those are the 5 things you need to remember. So as you're going through this process of summarizing, use this SWBST, all right? It's a good acronym. I'm going to put it up here. And SWBST for summarizing a story, okay? You can use this for a poem. You could use it probably, well, poems would do something a little bit different with, but definitely any fiction story that you read, you can do this, all right? And that's what we need to try and do. That's what I have. Okay. So see if that helps a little bit, and we will go from there. All right.